there. Welcome to Conversations with NextFifty. I'm Amy Daly. I'm the Director of Communications at NextFifty Initiative. We're a private foundation that helps support programs and initiatives to benefit older adults and improve quality of life for older adults here in Colorado and nationwide. Today, we are so excited to talk about a really important topic, which is older adults in the workplace. And our guest today is Karen Brown. Karen is a thought leader. She is focused on evolving how we think about aging and the last half of life, with a focus on making changes throughout society that improve lives of older adults. She is also the Colorado Liaison for Age Inclusive Management Strategies Program. We call it AIMS. That is a grantee of NextFifty Initiative that's really focused on helping employers do a better job of both recruiting and retaining older adults in their workforce. Karen has also been involved with Changing the Narrative, another NextFifty Initiative grantee, really focused on changing the way we talk, think, and act about aging. So welcome, Karen.
Amy, thank you so much. Just delighted to be here. And thank you especially for the financial support you've given us through the grant program to support the Age Inclusive Management Strategies program.
So super excited to talk about workforce development and how that relates to older adults today. So I think we're at a time right now in our culture, in society, things are really changing as far as employment, the way employers the adaptations that employers are having to make right now, considering our job market. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about some trends that you're seeing and how those relate specifically to older adults.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time right now in the labor market. Much like before COVID, when we had very low unemployment, we are right back there right now. We were somewhere around 3%, maybe just a hair above that amount. So that means many, many job opportunities, employers really kind of reassessing what is the talent pipeline and who's involved in that. So they're now expanding that reach to look at everybody, including older adults. So I think there's a real opportunity here for them. The other thing that I've actually had the chance to see is that through Arapahoe Douglas Works, I actually got to see a little chart of the skills gap that exists between what employers are seeking and what appears to be in the workforce when they're looking traditionally at the younger population coming in. You and I know, Amy, that if somebody's been in the workforce for decades, they're going to bring a wealth of knowledge to the table. So that is another factor playing into the hand of the older adult. The last thing that I would mention is that, and I think employers tend to just kind of keep this in the back of their mind. They kind of forget that we have had huge demographic shifts in the US, in Colorado, across the globe. What has actually happened is we have significantly lower birth rates. I mean, actually, post-COVID, it was the lowest birth rate in 40 years. Yet, older adults are living decades longer. So as employers start to think about how do I plan for my workforce, my labor force, they need to be thinking about that demographic shift and how it will play into filling those different roles in their company.
So interesting. And what's really interesting is despite those demographic shifts and the low unemployment, older adults still are facing a lot of barriers in the workforce. And I'm wondering what kinds of barriers that you see what's happening out there with older adults when it comes to barriers to employment?
I will start first with kind of what we often refer to, change the narrative, as those past policies. And it kind of leads into a bit of ageism. But if you think back to 1935, when we established Social Security, we set it up so that you would retire at 65. Well, 1935, the average man lived to 60, the average woman to 64. That means most people died. Most people died before they had a chance to retire. Now, fast forward to today, and imagine that you are living to 85, 90, 95, or 100. If you retire at 65, that's a whole different world. And so employers haven't quite adapted to thinking about, maybe they don't want to retire. Maybe they want to keep working. So it's kind of an unintended ageism for starters, just because that's the way it's always been. But there are other things that employers often look at, and they look at, oh my gosh, if I hire an older person, I hire Karen Brown, she's going to cost too much money. She's just grown up the ladder, makes more money. I can hire a younger person and I pay less. Well, in fact, studies have been done that show it is a break even. You get the value you pay for. So there is no great value for hiring somebody at 30,000 versus somebody at 80,000. They bring different skill sets to the table. We often hear that older adults are not willing to learn or they won't stick around. Transamerica Institute did a study and they showed that of the respondents, more than 20,000, half of them over 65 were upskilling, reskilling, next skilling. So older adults are actually looking at how do I stay pertinent to the workforce? And the last thing that we hear is, oh, older adults won't stick around. They're all going to retire. Well, AARP has done surveys and it has proven older adults will stay 4 times as long as a younger person. So those are just a few of the things. I mean, technology is considered a concern, but after COVID, honestly, Pew Charitable Trust has done surveys and found that older adults adapted quickly when they found value to actually accessing and utilizing technology.
Yeah, so many benefits I think that older adults can bring, and we don't talk enough about those benefits. The technology, the fact that they are the loyalty and mentoring, right? Mentoring is another big one I think that older adults bring to the workforce.
Absolutely. That was one of the things, like, think about mentoring even way back when General Electric, came into existence and Jack Welch was in charge. When he discovered the internet, he hired 500 students to come in and mentor his entire senior management team because he recognized that cross-pollination, that education was highly valuable. But it reverts the reverse way as well for older adults who have decades of experience in the workplace. They can help those younger people kind of understand the ropes, especially the emotional quotient, that understanding, collaboration, communication within a team or within the company. So that certainly is a great benefit. The other thing about older adults is they were raised in a time where a company hired you, they invested in you, and you actually formed a sort of loyalty to them. Maybe not today to 30, 40, 50 years, but certainly that you would stick around to really fulfill that job. And as long as you're being treated fairly, you were loyal to the company. So those are a couple of advantages to having those older adults. And the last thing I'd mention is KPMG did a survey across the globe, 3,500 offices. And they asked all of their respondents, what is the best benefit of having an intergenerational team? And the response was 85% said, we have by far the most creative, problem-solving teams when we have the broadest generations on that team. So, I think that speaks a lot to having that intergenerational team work together, older, middle-aged, younger, all of us working together.
Yeah, I love that. I love just the diversity of thought that comes from not only diversity of background, but also diversity in age. That really, I think, makes a huge difference.
Yes.
We're coming out of an interesting time with COVID. So many things have changed in the workforce, right? Less of us go to the office every week. We use technology in new ways. I'm wondering what changes over the past couple of years might actually help older adults as we try to get more of these really experienced workers into the workforce.
Yeah. I would have to say that the number one thing that COVID really helped employers see, and actually even helped the employee, and probably every age, but especially older adults, is before I'd hear about, we have a flexible job arrangement. Karen can work at home 1 day a week, every 2 weeks. And like they were feeling like, we're going all out. Now we know, employers know, hey, you know what? Half of my team can work at home all the time. And it continues to go perfectly. So I think flexibility around everything, flex location, whether I work at home or the office, flex time. It used to be maybe 7 to 4, 9 to 6, 8 to 5. Actually, if I can get it done in 12 hours time between 6 in the morning and 8 at night, I have a little bit more flexibility to accommodate whatever's happening in my life with my family, my caring for older adults, caring for kids, whatever the case may be. So I think we've just really evolved and adapted to this whole concept of flexibility is good. You're hearing, like I read it in the paper all the time, hey, we're advertising for a remote job and somebody from Hawaii applies and they're able to, fit the bill and work from there. So I really think that flexibility and that mindset shift for employers has been really beneficial. Now, challenging, trying to make it all kind of come together, because we're still working through some challenges for those employers. But I think that is with us in perpetuity and will only bring value to every age in the workplace.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really interesting because I do think that provides a big opportunity for those older workers who may be wanting to slowly transition into retirement and take their time instead of, dropping off the cliff, but rather kind of easing into a more flexible work schedule. So like, what a beautiful opportunity that presents.
Yes, absolutely. And, we hear that from a lot of older adults. I actually think that the government, through the General Accounting Office, did surveys, and they found that most older adults were interested in staying working in some capacity. They just didn't want the 50-hour-a-week, 60-hour-a-week job anymore. They wanted something to keep them socially connected, mentally engaged, and then earning just a little bit more income to be sure that they had that financial security, given that we're living decades longer.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So talking about AIMS, this is the Age Inclusive Management Strategies Program. I know you're the Colorado liaison for that program. Can you tell me a little bit about it and what the goal of this program is?
Yes. So thanks again to NextFifty Initiative. We've actually received 2 grants. We started in around 2019, and the initial work of the grants of the project was really understanding more about what employers do to retain and recruit older adults. So that first phase was focused on doing surveys. We sent surveys to more than 1,000 companies and got hundreds of responses back. From those responses, we were able to kind of narrow down the kinds of strategies and policies they did use to keep those employees or to bring them into the company. And then our goal had been to start meeting with those companies in person. And as you might remember, our conference was on February 27th of 2020, 2 weeks before Colorado shut down. So fortunately,
what timing?
Yeah, right. It's like and we had so many companies writing to us saying, "Hey, I want to meet with you guys. Let's talk about this. This is great." So we did a little bit of a pivot, and we now have a website that when we connect with employers, we really talk about recruiting, retaining older adults, but we direct them to a website. That website, they take different assessments that help them look at 10 strategies. The idea is that we narrow the focus so that they're choosing 1 or 2 strategies. And then we do the homework for them. We really gather the information, present the information to them, really help them understand what they might be doing, whether it's regarding phased retirement, providing resources for caregiving, whatever it may be. We gather the information, provide it to them, and then help them to implement. So that's where we're at right now. We have just shy of 3 dozen companies that we're working with here in Colorado to really help them evolve and grow their talent pipeline, including more older adults.
That's amazing. And what do those companies pay to be involved in this program?
Well, thanks to NextFifty Initiative, we are not charging anything. So we provide up to 10 hours, give or take a few. I mean, for the most part, it's been 10 hours that we commit to the company, that we meet various times. So we commit to meet with them over a 6-month time period, selecting a strategy, doing the homework, helping them set it up to implement it. And then by the end of the 6-month time period, we follow back up with the company to say, all right, you chose this strategy or these strategies. How did they work? Did you run into glitches? Which one was most effective? And really, that's all done free of charge to really stimulate, to catalyze, to help those companies kind of take that next step. And honestly, these HR departments are so busy. They are just literally slammed. Being that resource for them, I think has really made a difference for most of them, just to be able to, fill in those loose ends that they've always wanted to do.
Yeah, that's an amazing opportunity. And sometimes you just need accountability and just a little bit of support, right? And I think that's what this program provides, which is great.
Yes.
Can you give me an example of one of those strategies or an idea, some things that are maybe recommended as part of the AIMS program?
I would say that where we got the most interest in 2022, I mean, just like every single company wanted to know, okay, I'm having trouble hiring. Where would I go to recruit older adults? Where would I go? Where do I find them? And then secondly, here's this job description I've been using for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Like, is it worded appropriately? Is there anything in here that would kind of deter an older adult? So we spent a fair amount of time walking through job descriptions, telling them some of the language was, it might deter somebody who was older. There was a landscaping company in northern Colorado that specifically had in it that, this particular position would be perfect for somebody just getting out of college. And we asked them, well, why do you say that? And he said, well, it pays a little less money. And we're thinking an older person wouldn't want to make less money. And we said, there are a lot of people that are maybe in a second career, a third career, that they just want their foot in the door to learn something new and have this opportunity. I said, since you have to disclose wages now anyway, broaden that language to say encore careers are an opportunity. The other thing we suggested to them is they recruit in kind of standard places. Like, we're all creatures of habit. Many of these places go to LinkedIn, they go to Indeed, maybe they do something on flex jobs if they have something flexible. But we said, if you're trying to recruit and retain older adults, let's go to places where they might frequent. So depending on where they're located, we provide them a vast array of resources that would actually let them tap into older adults that are probably looking for work. So that was truly number one across the board, recruiting. And how do I find them? Where do I go to connect with these older adults?
I'm guessing that Ames also has some strategies or suggestions regarding retention, because if you have a great employee who's loyal, knows the job, has amazing experience, and brings a lot of wisdom to the role, you don't want them to go anywhere. So are there some suggestions or ideas related to retention as well?
Yes. So on the retention side of the equation, we've had conversations with some, I can think of a county that's, they have something like, 60% of their top 2 tiers of management are over 55. And they said, we want to retain those people to train our younger people. So they're really working on structuring phased retirement. But we actually dealt with a large city here in Colorado that said, you might think this sounds crazy, she said, but we have a lot of employees with pets. And she goes, we're actually going to mandate that they are allowed to bring their pet in 1 or 2 days a week. And we're going to cover pet insurance. And for me, it was like, I never thought of that but for people who have pets, they're so close with those animals. They are a member of the family. Having that as a benefit was something she felt would really help retain some of the younger and some of the older workers.
I love it. It's a creative idea, and what if it works, then wonderful, because you're giving those people that want to stay a chance, a better chance of really getting what they need at the workplace.
Absolutely.
So if I'm listening to this conversation and I am not in HR and I don't have the ability to change the policies at my company, what are some things that I could do to help bring more older adults and that really great experience into my workplace? Or to support older adults I know who are out there either looking or wanting to be more engaged in the workforce?
I would say that there are a couple of avenues you can take. If you're somebody, maybe you're not working right now. There are organizations in Colorado that focus on policy at the state level. And we have the opportunity to really connect with every legislator in the state as we, call our constituent and say, we need more dollars for upskilling, reskilling, next skilling older adults. Sometimes if somebody's been at a company for 10 years, we take for granted, they know how to find a job. But if you've been in the same position and you haven't kind of wandered out, you may not even know sort of what the up and coming professions are. You may not know where to get that training, or you may not have the resources to be able to make that happen. So getting involved and supporting policy and sharing with your legislator that, there are older people looking for jobs and they need access to resources. Help us make that happen. I would offer that as one avenue. And the other one I would offer is if people are still working. Say you're still working, you could be 60, 65, and you're actually thinking, I kind of want to retire, but I want to do not, like Amy said, do I take the cliff where I quit and one day I'm just out of the office? If your company does not have a phased retirement program, approach HR. We are actually in this unique environment where HR departments are really struggling to figure out how do I keep the knowledge, the wisdom, the expertise and skills of these talented people who've been here for decades train the new ones coming in. This could be the opportunity for you to help be the catalyst to get your company to open their eyes to saying, well, gosh, maybe we should be doing a phased retirement program, and we're going to start with you. Let's talk about how we might structure that. So I would offer both that chance to connect with your legislator, help us, move the needle there, but also talk with your employer or nudge a friend of yours who is looking at that to talk to their employer to try to open that door.
Okay, great suggestions. Anything else that you would like to add about this on this really important topic before we sign off, Karen?
I would just say that there are two other avenues that could be followed by companies in general. As we met with one HR director, she was 67, had 42 HR people that reported to her. And she said, I know I have a great team. She says, but they often don't think that they're ageist. She goes, as I hear them talk and we have these discussions, I recognize their implicit bias. No one's intentionally being biased. She goes, I really think that our entire HR team, as well as the employees in the company, should be educated on what ageism is, so that you can identify it, because these people are not thinking they're being ageist and they inadvertently are. So I think education within every company is critical, just like we do education on issues related to race or on issues related to gender. Age is really sort of that up and coming frontier that we're starting to recognize, oh, this is a little bit of a challenge or a problem, and we really need to be thinking about altering our thought process. And the last thing I would offer is that, there is an easy route to let employees know that you are open to older adults. There's something called the AARP pledge. It is a no-cost pledge. It is a simple commitment that says we are committed to hiring all ages, and with the knowledge that people could be 50, 60, 70, or beyond. And we are open to all of that. And we will support, employing people of every age. And I think that is a great thing to do, because you can actually get the little seal. There's an AARP seal. It's like the Good Housekeeping seal. And this says, you put it on your website, on your career site, that says, look, I'm connected to AARP. I've taken the pledge, so that at least somebody looking for a job would know, well, they're connected to AARP. They've looked at some of the resources. They're more likely to be open to hiring somebody who's older. So I would add that. And then, of course, if anybody's interested in AIMS, reach out to me. We're glad to help.
Great suggestions. There's a little something for everyone there. So I really love that. Thanks so much for the work that you are doing and the work that AIMS is doing, Karen. We are so grateful to you for really putting a light on the issue of older adults in the workplace. So thank you so much.